All right. Welcome to another episode of Labor. I'm joined here with my beautiful fiancé,
Thank you.
Kemely Castro. Thanks, babe, for joining me today.
Thank you for inviting me to my living room.
Oh, it's the least I could do.
It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to be part of the interview process. So often I'm just a spectator while you're doing this with others. So I'm very excited to be a part of it, and I'm also very honored.
Cheers to that.
Cheers.
So, I don't think there could be a better topic for us to cover. Today we're going to talk about anxiety, which I know is something you deal with and a lot of other people deal with. But before we go into that, would you mind just introducing yourself, talking to people a little bit about where you are in your journey in life, and just a little bit about you?
Yeah, so I'm Kemely, your fiance. I am 32, and I'm always trying to find myself on my journey. I don't know if I'll ever get to the point where I really feel like I have found myself, but I feel like at my 30s I really know more of who I am, and I'm really more prepared to really go after my passions and not worry so much about what others think, but really focus on myself and my purpose, which is a topic that is discussed so often in labor. I currently work in the beauty industry, which I love. Beauty is one of my passions, not only because I love makeup and I'm a girly girl, but also because I really feel it can go deeper than that. I really feel there's a bigger purpose also to beauty, and it can start a lot of conversations. I wrote a piece for labor last month for our openness issue, where I talk a little bit about that topic and how I feel that the beauty industry isn't just about beauty per se, but it starts a lot of conversations about culture and politics and a lot of other things. So I'm in the beauty industry, and somehow I found my way into the beauty industry, and I'm very happy there, and I'm growing, both in my career and as a person, and I'm just always on this journey called life.
So other than beauty, what else do you consider your passions?
I have a lot of passions, but I think one of the things that makes me happiest is to be able to help others. And it can be in a small way, or it can be in a very large way. And I feel that part of my purpose is to be able to help others, and maybe one day do it in a bigger scale, whether it be something as literal as starting a charity, or whether it be using my voice in order to do so. So that's definitely one of my passions. But I mean, the simple answer is I have so many passions. Traveling is one of them. I think there's no better learning experience than when you travel and you leave your little bubble and you're able to see how others live. It helps you understand people in general more. And I love learning about all the other cultures because it's such a way to expand yourself. You are born into a certain world, and not everybody is sheltered, but my upbringing was a bit sheltered in terms of, I was around my family and stuff, and my upbringing was very culturally rich, but in terms of my own culture, I'm Dominican, so and I'm very appreciative about that. I learned so much about the Dominican culture, even though I'm born and raised in the United States. But as I got older and I started just learning more about other parts of the world and meeting people from everywhere, I realized how different the world can be, and I'm absolutely intrigued by it. And I'm constantly learning about other cultures and other places, and food is a passion of mine. And when you travel, you get to taste so many different things that you don't necessarily get the pleasure of having every day. So traveling is also definitely one of my passions. And ultimately, my biggest passion is learning. And I think all of these other things that I've mentioned helps me learn in some way or another. And to me, it's like, what is life if you're not learning? If you're not learning, you're not growing. And it's very important for me to continue learning every single day. I never feel like I know all there is to know about something. And I feel like I can also learn something about every single person I encounter.
So let me ask you, what is your definition of anxiety?
So it's a loaded question because I feel like actually not really. So I think there's what brings on anxiety, or what anxiety is a feeling that something is not going to go right or not going to go the way that you want it to go. But there's different levels of it, and there's different triggers. So everybody has an experience or has had an experience with anxiety, right? So, you're in school, you have finals coming up, and you may get anxiety. But you get that anxiety because you're afraid that even though you've studied, you're not prepared enough and you're not going to do well. Or maybe you haven't studied and you're like, there's like zero chance that I'm going to pass this final, right? Or you get anxiety because something big happened around you and you witnessed it, or you're afraid that it's going to happen. So I feel that it's the fear of something wrong happening, because you don't get anxiety when you're expecting something great to happen. You may be anxious to hear, you may be anxious when you're awaiting for an answer, but the reason that you're anxious is not because you're 100% sure it's going to go the way you want it to. You're anxious because you know that there's that slight chance that things won't go the way that you want it to go.
Yeah.
So that's the definition for me.
Yeah, no, if I think something went well, I don't even think about the answer because I know.
Right.
So what gives you anxiety on a daily basis?
So in my case, I think I have a more severe form of anxiety than most people do. For me, I get regular anxiety when I have, certain things that happen, like what I just mentioned. But I think for me, it's more of a generalized form of anxiety. I can have a great day and still come home and have all of a sudden something triggers it. And I just have like really, really bad anxiety. In my case, it's hereditary. Both my mom's side and my dad's side of the family have really, really bad issues with anxiety. My brother has really bad anxiety as well. So for us, it's a little bit more difficult to keep under control, because unlike a logical fear of taking a test and not passing, our anxiety, it really stems from a very illogical place. It's feeling that you have control over life or over circumstances that you don't really have control over.
Like what?
So for instance, I think Um, it's like when people have obsessive compulsive disorder. Um, OCD comes from a place of anxiety, and it's this illogical thought that by you doing something, you're gonna stop something bad from happening, right? So with OCD, there's a variety of things you can do, but let's say, as an example, a person wakes up in the morning and has to tap the wall 5 times. And they have to do this every single day, or they'll have incredibly bad anxiety and not be able to go on with their day. Because in their mind, if they tap the wall 5 times, everything's going to go fine. But if they don't get to do that, then they're so terrified that something bad is going to happen. So in our case, not everybody is that severe. Like once you have OCD, that's like a really, really severe case of, and I'm not a professional, but this is information that I've received about reading about the topic. I mean, it could be a variety of things, right? But in this type of generalized anxiety comes from this very illogical place that no matter how great things are going, you're just waiting for something bad to happen. And it's crazy. I mean, in life, you have great things that happen and you have bad things that happen, and you learn how to deal with it. But I think it's this all-consuming fear that something bad is going to happen, and you're just kind of like, all of a sudden you're just focused on that, and that's all that you can focus on. And by me doing this and talking about anxiety, I also don't want to come across as like I'm the anxiety spokesperson, because I know that a lot of people deal with it in different ways and have different triggers, and different things may have happened in their life that have made them have anxiety. So, I just want to make it clear that my perception is just that, my perception, and it's what I'm telling you today is my story with anxiety and what I've seen that my family has gone through. But for me, it's very much that fear of something bad happening, but it stems from this idea of being a control freak and just wanting to control everything. And you can't control life. Life is life. Life happens. And that's hard to deal with, I think.
Yeah, everyone's case is going to be different. What gives anyone anxiety? Everyone gets it for different reasons. But you just led to my next question is, well, how do you deal with it? Like, what do you do? What are the steps you take?
So I've made a conscious decision to not take medication for my anxiety. Sometimes I have good days and good weeks where I'm fine and I don't have like a major anxiety episode, and then sometimes I have a week where every single day, like I wake up and I'm like short of breath. I'm just, sometimes anxiety could affect you so much that it's crippling, that you feel like, can I get up, and go to work today? To me, I really feel like I'm able to control it with my mind, because it is a very mental thing, right? Again, to me, it's a very illogical thing. So it could be very mental, and I work every single day in learning how to deal with it and learning how to calm myself down and bring my mind to a place that is more present, I think. And I do different things. Like, I really feel that there's nothing healthier for a person than to have gratitude and just be grateful for what you have. And it could always be worse. So to me, that's actually something that helps me a lot. When I have the worst days with my anxiety, I try to think about, like, you're having a bad day, but, there's others going through this. There's this going on in the world. There's, and that helps ground me a little bit. And then I start to think, like, why are you anxious? And I kind of like have a conversation with myself. It's like, why are you anxious? There's no reason for you to be anxious right now. And if there is a reason, because sometimes there is, like I said, there are triggers. And maybe I've had a bad day, or I screwed up at work, or, I said something that hurt someone's feelings. Like, those little things will trigger me. And if it's those types of things that are triggering me, then I try to come up with a solution. And it doesn't always work, but it's always going to be a work in progress. People deal with it in different ways, and there are people who choose to go to therapy, which I'm not against. I've just never done it. Like I said, my family also deals with anxiety, and I have a very close family, so I'm able to, call up a family member, whether it be like my cousin, or friends that deal with anxiety, or my mom, and I'm able to have a conversation. And very often, speaking about it, it's like a weight off your shoulders. Like, even just saying to someone that understands, I'm having a really, really bad day with anxiety, and you having a conversation about it is very, very helpful. And again, that's why I choose to speak about this subject, because I think one of the most dangerous things and one of the most crippling things when you have anxiety, or really bad anxiety, is to feel like you're alone. Because sometimes when you have anxiety, you literally feel like you're stuck in this black hole, and you can feel very, very alone. And it's very, very important to find people that you can talk about it with, because it's so helpful to just say it and have a conversation about it and not keep it in. When you keep things in like that, it becomes a bigger issue.
When you say alone, are you saying in a sense that no one understands what you're going through?
Mm-hmm. Not everybody has really bad anxiety like this. There are people who do get anxiety because of specific reasons, and then once that situation is over, they're done and they go on with their lives until another situation comes up.
Do you think that maybe there is always a reason, but you may not know what that reason is?
Maybe, yeah. I think there's definitely a reason. It's not like there isn't any reason. I think sometimes the reason is just a deeper seated reason. Very often, you go to a therapist and they may ask, like, well, how was your childhood like? Well, a lot of things come from your childhood. A lot of your issues or your ways of thinking, come from your parents, or lack thereof, or your relationships with your family, or things that happened when you were younger and you were susceptible and more vulnerable to a lot of things. And then those things are deep rooted and they end up affecting you as an adult. And I feel that, a lot of negative things that you deal with as an adult, in terms of like emotional issues, do come from when you're a child. And I can expand more on that, but to go back to the feeling of being alone, I think a lot of times when you're having like a really bad anxiety, like so bad when you have a panic attack, you kind of feel like you're going crazy. and you feel like no one will understand you. And I think it's dangerous, because I think anxiety very often can become depression. And, you have to snap out of it. You're not alone. There's so many people that deal with anxiety, and that's why I think it's so important to have the conversation, because people that suffer from it themselves need to hear that other people are suffering from it, so that they don't feel like they're crazy. You're not crazy. There's been more celebrities who have started talking about it, and I respect that, because, they're under a lot of pressures. They have a lot of anxiety, and, there's people more and more that are coming out and saying it, and they have a huge platform and a large voice, and a lot of people can relate to it, especially with them, because you see a celebrity, you think that they have a perfect life, and then you realize, no, like, they wake up and they have pressures to perform and pressures to be this perfect person. The same pressures that a lot of us have, even though their life seems so glamorous. But celebrities like Lady Gaga has been very open with her anxieties, and Katy Perry, and a bunch of celebrities. I think I like the fact that they're talking about it. I think it's important because they have a huge platform. And, I'm going to talk about it as much as I can. And everybody who has it should talk about it. They shouldn't feel ashamed, because we always feel like somebody's not going to understand us. But a lot more people suffer from it than we realize.
Do you believe that if things keep going this way and you keep dealing with it the same way, that it's going to get better, or you're not going to have anxiety anymore?
I don't think I'm never not going to have anxiety. Just because a lot of where my anxiety comes from is very deep-rooted. So I don't think I'm not going to have anxiety. I think that, and I hope that as I get older, I find more and more tools to deal with it. There's always going to be situations that I'm going to go through in life that aren't going to be easy, whether you go through, God forbid, a tragedy, or you lose somebody close in your life. Like, those things will most likely trigger my anxieties and my fear of something going wrong, and then something does go wrong. That's going to bring anxiety to someone, especially to any normal person, but especially if you're like constantly fearing this. So I'm realistic. I know that I'm never not going to have it. But I think as I've gotten older, I've just found better and better tools to deal with it. And again, it's a mind state. Like, the mind is a very, very powerful thing. But I think we also have to realize that the mind can deceive you. And that just because you're afraid of certain things, it doesn't mean they're there. It's more you making yourself afraid of something than it being something substantial. So again, I personally do not want to get to the point where I feel like I need medication, just because I think medication is a temporary Band-Aid, for anxiety. I think it's something that you feel bad, you take it, and it numbs you, so you're not feeling bad at that moment. But once the medication wears off, the deep-rooted feelings and the reasons of why you're having anxiety in the first place are still there. And I think what happens is that people who do start taking medication become very dependent on it. And I say it because I've seen it firsthand. I have family members that take medication and cannot function without it. And they're never going to be able to function without it, because it's going to be, they're taking that Band-Aid that is numbing them. But you can't numb yourself from things, from reality. And for me, that's not the goal. Yes, do I wish I didn't get really bad anxiety? Of course, I wish that I didn't. but I also want to be able to live, I guess, a normal life without numbing myself. And I think my goal is to be able to deal with negative situations and with negative emotions and with pain in a natural way. Because just how happiness and pleasures and all of that is part of life, pain and suffering is part of life too. And I think as humanity, we can't shelter ourselves from that. We can't numb ourselves from that.
I mean, it really seems to me like you've accepted, this fact that you have anxiety, you've accepted this. When you talk about it, you talk about how it's hereditary, and how you get it with even, without triggers. You just get it for a random reason. You don't know why. Have you ever tried to, because I'm a big believer of this notion that what you believe is what you receive. And this idea, it's very, it's a mentality that what you believe is what you're going to get. Do you ever try telling yourself, I don't have anxiety, in the moments where you do, and convincing yourself that you don't have it? And switching your roles like that?
No, because I think, to me, that would be kind of living a lie and not accepting what is there. I understand how that could be a method, because, like I said, I feel like it is a very mental thing, so maybe you can convince yourself. But personally, I've never tried that. I think, when I'm having anxiety or bouts of anxiety, I just kind of think okay, I'm having anxiety. What's making me anxious right now? And a lot of times I'll go through my day or my week. And I think for me, what gives me, I don't know, what makes me feel better about the situation is putting my anxiety on an actual situation, something that happened. I feel, and this is for me, and I'm not saying everyone's like that, but if I have anxiety and I can't figure out why, I'll go through what happened in my day or my week or my month, and then for some reason, I get relief when I play a situation in my head and I'm oh, that was my trigger. Because it makes me feel like I'm not completely insane. It makes me feel oh, well, I have anxiety because this happened. And that's my solace. That's what relieves me or soothes me at the moment. And then again, kind of just going through I don't know, just thinking okay, well, that's what gave you anxiety. It's not that bad. And then going through my exercises of gratitude and saying, well, this happened. I had a bad day, or I did this, or I did that. But you know what? Things can be worse.
So it's constantly actually going back in time, trying to figure out why I feel this way or what triggered me in that pursuit. And if you can't figure out what that trigger was, is it safe to say the anxiety gets worse, or that's...
Yeah.
But that's a decision you're making to try to figure that out instead of being present.
Right. Well, I think it's part of me trying to be present. Because once I find something that in my mind may have been a trigger, then I'm kind of able to move on. But there are situations, like you said, that I don't find a reason. So then what happens is that I want to blame it on something. And I mean, to be very frank, you and I have been through this where sometimes I blame it on you. And then I think, if I can't find a reason why I'm anxious, then something is happening around me that's making me anxious. And then I come to you and I'm like, what are you doing that I'm not seeing? And again, it's very illogical. But when you deal with anxiety, it's not necessarily a logical thing.
I wonder what would happen if you stopped looking for triggers. Because it's a habit right now. It's like, I get anxiety, this is what I do, and this is how I could maybe feel better. When in all reality, this could also cause you to feel a lot worse, doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So I wonder what would happen if you start practicing what you said in the beginning. Is the best way to deal with it is being present and not searching for things or you don't understand.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's like it's a constant exercise that I practice. I try to make myself be present. Like,
how do you do that?
I'm going to say the word again. Gratitude is one of the ways. Just like putting all of my this need to, this need to always find a reason of why I'm feeling a certain way, and if I don't find it, looking for it or blaming somebody. For me, it's just to remind myself that I'm so lucky. So stop trying to find something wrong with your life. Because I think that's one of the big issues that I have, is that no matter how successful I am or how great things are going, I have to find something wrong. And if I don't find it, I'm expecting it. Well, I don't have it right now, that means it's coming soon. And so when I take a moment and think about really all the things that I should be grateful for, as opposed to trying to find something wrong with my life, then that really helps in centering me. And I started doing that maybe in the last, within the last year or so, when so many horrible things, or we as people were more aware of so many horrible things that were going on in the world. And of course, politics is a trigger, and the news and all of that. And we, especially with social media and our access to information, we very quickly are engulfed with negative things, because that's what is covered. It's sensationalist. That's what sells papers, even though we don't really buy papers anymore. People are somehow innately attracted to these negative things. And I was falling into this hole, I guess you can say, and obsession of knowing what's going on in the world, and all I was getting was negative information. And so I made a conscious decision to no longer watch the news and take information the way that people want to give it to me, but seek information the way that I need to receive it at that moment. So I now, look for things. If something negative happened, well, I'll try to educate myself if I feel like it. But I realized that it was making my anxiety worse. And I've read a lot of articles about how people say, well, with the current political climate and with the things that are going on in the world, they are getting more anxiety just about the world and just about what the future is going to be like. And so I realized I need to seek out more positivity. And I don't think I've ever made such a conscious decision to seek out positivity than than how I do now. Like when I was younger, like, I don't know, I didn't really think about it, you know, but now I'm like, I want to do positive things. I want to do things that will make me feel good inside, that, you know, I want to do things that will help me make other people feel good. So now it's just about me making also the conscious decision to seek more positive things.
I think that's great. You know, more of us should do that. Stop being such consumers and consuming all this, you know, negativity and a lot of uselessness.
Yeah.
You know, so much we consume on a daily, I think, as a race that is not beneficial to our lives. We're not learning from, we're not growing from it, information. I'm going to try to make a connection to anxiety and what you just described, because I'm not saying you're running away from your fear, but by getting off of social media, right, and not reading the news anymore, these are things that give you anxiety, right?
Mm-hmm.
In a daily life, there's going to be things you can't avoid. You can't just run away from things you're going to have to deal with. In those moments, those things are going to trigger you and are going to give you anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
So, the point I'm trying to make is, do you feel like shutting something down as a way to not get anxiety from it is a healthy way of dealing with it, versus learning how to consume the information and be okay with it and not letting it affect you? Because there's going to be a lot of things in your life that the hope is, you know, if I see a picture of something I don't like, it's not going to affect me. I won't let it affect me. You know what I'm saying? Like, dealing with the issues that way.
Well, first of all, I am a Class A runner. I run all the time, not literally, because I hate running. I would be in incredible shape if I ran as much as, like, if I ran literally as much as I run from problems. I would be like a triathlete. Like, I would be just in such amazing shape. I do run, so I'm not going to say that I don't run from things. However, I don't think there's absolutely any benefit to forcing yourself to be on social media and to be on your phone and to read negative thing after negative thing after negative thing. I think it's incredibly toxic. And I think the beauty of social media and of these things is that you can shut it off and put it away. You can't do that with life. And so when you have a situation that's in front of you and that you need to deal with it, you should deal with it. And that's something that is easier said than done for me. And it's like a work in progress, and it's something that I've tried to do in my life, is like deal with situations, and sometimes I don't know how to deal with them and I run and that's my thing, right? But social media, technology, the news, those are things that are controlled by others. And you can decide or not decide to partake in that. And I think it's incredibly toxic. And what I wish that I could actually disconnect more than what I do. But the truth is that I also love information. And so I love the fact that information is now at our fingertips. But I think we need to be careful with that. Because just, you know, like, social media, a lot of it is not even real. It's people sharing, like, fake stories, and I don't want to sound like Trump. It's not like fake news. But, I mean, Instagram is one of my favorite forms of social media because I love the creative aspect of it. I think many people's feeds are beautiful. I love using it because I feel like I'm being creative when I'm using it. But at the end of the day, it's staged pictures with filters. If you don't want to constantly consume that, then don't. That's the beauty of it. You don't have to. And if you feel like it's making you feel a certain way that's negative about yourself or about the world, then why, don't continue doing it.
I guess it's a behavior. That's what I'm trying to get across. Is you're making a choice to the way you're gonna deal with the way that makes you feel is get rid of it completely, versus figuring out a way to take in that information and not let it affect you. Because that mentality you're using with social media, maybe that's why you feel the same way when real life situations happen.
I don't think that social media is real life. So I think there's, like on Facebook, people share a lot of articles and blah, blah, blah that connect with things that are happening, but it doesn't mean that's the only information out there, and everybody covers things the way that benefits them or covers things in their perspective. I don't think you should run away from life, but I think that social media and the internet and the way that I don't even think the news is really real life. It's information that has been given to you through somebody's perspective or sensationalized because that's what people want to see. And social media and news is like that. I think that things that happen in real life, whether they're negative or positive, will have an effect on you, and even negative things can have a positive effect on you. But I don't think that what happens on the internet necessarily, it can have a positive effect, but I don't think you need that to live a healthy life. Granted, it's the world that we live in, and it's only going to get harder to get away from it. And I don't, I would be a hypocrite to say, like, don't be on the internet, don't do social media. I'm constantly on it. But I think what I'm trying to say is, there's no way to escape it unless you really turn it off. And I don't choose to turn it off completely. I think you know that. But what I'm saying is that you also have the control. The way that people have the control of how they give you information, you also have the control of how you receive information. And I think only you know the best way for you to receive information. And you can't get stuck in this whole, social media world.
I like to believe that we all have the innate power to control how we react to things. Mm-hmm. I think we can train our minds to react in certain ways, and from experience, practicing different habits, making habits of things. If you don't like something in your life, you don't like how you feel about something, you change your mentality, just tweak a little bit, I just have a couple more questions for you. First one is, do you love yourself?
Yes. I feel like I love myself, but I feel like there's days when I'm not my favorite person in the entire world. I think it's a process, I think having a relationship with yourself is just like having a relationship with someone else. I think sometimes you are like, I'm the shit, I did this, and I'm so smart, and I'm so pretty, and I'm so creative, and you have a day where you're like loving yourself. And I think that there's days where you're incredibly hard on yourself. I do love the person who I am and who I'm becoming, but I'm not always like I said, I'm not always my favorite person. I think sometimes I really don't like the things that I did or I said or the way that I react to things. And it's always going to be a work in progress for me. I think for me right now, like, it's okay if I don't always love the person who I am. But I think my goal is to one day look back, like, when I'm older, if I'm able to live until I'm older, and be proud of what I was able to accomplish. Because one of the things that I've been working on, or that is a constant struggle, is this idea, or like accepting the fact that I'm not perfect. And it's been really hard to accept that, because I was raised to strive for perfection. So, you know, like I said, it's a work in progress, but I'm trying to accept that fact. And I think when I fully accept the fact that I'm not perfect, I'll have better days in my relationship with myself.
I don't think it's perfect.
Yeah.
I've realized good is better than perfect.
Yeah.
Because good gets done. You know, good is out in the world. Perfect, you will take forever trying to create something that does not exist, and then no one will ever see it.
Exactly. And I mean, those words are incredibly important, and I think it's things that we have to remember, especially if you're a perfectionist like me. Like, I'm a perfectionist. I'm a control freak. I want people to react the way that I want them to react. I want things to happen the way that I want them to happen. And not in like a selfish way, although it can come across a bit selfish, but more in like, it's that struggle of me striving for perfection. And perfection doesn't exist. Perfection doesn't exist. You know, like I wanted to get a tattoo. I may still get it. Of a quote that the internet says Salvador Dali said. I don't know. I didn't hear him say it, but I choose to believe it. But it's a quote that when I first heard it, like, just stuck with me. And I actually say it in my mind all the time. So maybe it is a good tattoo to get. But it's never fear perfection, for you will never reach it. So don't be afraid of something that's not real.
Yeah.
So don't strive for something that's not real. And that, yeah, like, that's a constant struggle. Like I said, you know, I was raised to be a perfectionist. My mom wanted me to be a perfect child. She's a perfectionist herself. So, you know, I just remember, and actually I was thinking about this because I knew that I was doing this interview. And I was like kind of thinking about, like, you know, my past and my childhood, and when I really thought that my anxiety first started. Because some people get it very young, and they feel it when they're a child, and they don't know what they're feeling. They don't know it's anxiety, but it's anxiety. My brother used to get anxiety when he was very, very young, and he would say that his heart hurt because he didn't, like, understand what was happening to him. And my mom took him to, like, cardiologists and a bunch of specialists. Nothing was wrong. And then eventually it hit me, like, he's having anxiety. You know, he would say his heart hurt, and I would touch his heart, and it was racing. And he was a very anxious child. My anxiety started a bit later. But anyway, I was thinking about all of this, and I was thinking about my childhood, and this is a conversation my mom and I have had here and there, and that she kind of apologizes for, but I don't blame her. But she really wanted to raise me as a perfect child. She would put me in these little dresses, and I would get in trouble if I got dirty. And she didn't want me crawling on the floor because I was going to get dirty or I was going to get hurt, and she sheltered me, but I was the firstborn, and she was in her 20s when she had me, and she thought I was like this fragile China doll. And then as I was growing up, like, I had to have the perfect manners, and I had to have perfect grades in school. And it was a good thing and bad thing. A good thing because I'm always striving for more, and I think that's a good quality to have when you're always striving to do better. But also it was very detrimental because she was trying to make me something that was impossible for me to be.
Yeah, I mean, think about what is perfection. Perfection, if you're perfect, that means in something you know it all. You're the best of the best.
Yeah.
And I think I used to be a perfectionist, but I mean, labor would have never happened if I was still a perfectionist. I took a product that I thought was good, put it out there, and kind of just learning as I go. And it's, putting it out there, I'm getting people to experience it. I'm learning what works, what doesn't, and I'm getting better. The product's getting better. And, I realized what helped me deal with perfectionism is this idea that you know nothing.
Right.
Once you believe that you know nothing, you're so much more receptive and open-minded to things, and you don't sort of weigh so much weight on things being perfect. Because good is great.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Because you're not an expert.
Right.
So stop thinking you have to be for something to be good.
Yeah. I think that's great. I think that's something that really resonates with me, because I'm always striving to be this like know-it-all. I need to know about everything. But
dealing with someone who knows more than you.
Always. And I think that if I change my mentality to you know nothing, and you're always not going to know anything, meaning like you may know a lot of things, but it's a fraction of all of the information on this world.
And I remind people all the time. I had my buddy look at it was a wine from France. He goes, France is not a good wine. I'm like, you know nothing. You ever been to France? You ever tried France?
Right.
I always remind people when they make a statement like that.
Yeah. I think it's important for people to feel validated and feel like they're needed, even if it's just for the information that they know.
Sure.
So I think it's harder for people to accept the fact that somebody may know more than they do. And that's also a mentality I'm trying to switch. It's just like, and it's so great to just learn from people. It's such a better experience to intake information than to constantly have to spew out information. Like it's for me, it's such a greater experience, and it's something that I've realized and that I continue to realize. Like, I love speaking to somebody who can teach me something. It's always such a great experience.
No, absolutely. All right, so to wrap things up, I'll ask you one last question. I ask this to everybody. What is your advice to people on how to live a more meaningful and creative life?
My advice would be to, as corny as it sounds, just follow your heart, because what's meaningful to you may seem like so not meaningful to somebody else. And I think it's very, very important to listen to yourself and your voice and your heart, and think about what's meaningful to you, and follow that and drown out the noise. I think that's very important. And in terms of a creative life, that's interesting, because we had a conversation recently and I'm like, oh, well, certain people aren't creative. Because when I think of creative, I think like a photographer, an artist, somebody who sees things in a certain way. But when you put creative and meaningful together, it changes my perspective, because creative can mean to finding a mean to an end. Like, just using creative tactics to get your goals accomplished. And that doesn't mean that you have to be, an artist per se in the traditional sense of the word, but creative in the way that you get things done. And so I think that the best way to do that, there's no other way but to follow your own voice and not worry about those people who don't understand you. Eventually they will understand, and if they don't understand, who cares? You'll realize that whatever you put your mind to, you can get it done. And it's very easy to doubt yourself, but don't allow that doubt to settle in.
I love it. Cheers to that.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you for coming to our living room and
I had to go so far.
About anxiety. I think this was great. I think your message will resonate with a lot of people, and I think the goal is to get other people to speak up, show themselves and talk about this, and as a community we can all come together and figure out really what's the best way to deal with all these topics, and to overcome any challenges we have. And I think that a lot of it is through creativity, and changing habits and things like that. So I appreciate you. Now we can watch Black Mirror.
Nice. Can't wait.
Right.
Follow me at Kemster.
Oh yeah, Kemster.
IG.